It's often said that the truth has power, and for some, that power is terrifying. From the beginning of recorded time, Africa wasn't just a continent. It was a cradle, a birthplace, a starting point, the land where humanity took its first breath. But what happens when the world discovers that the people it has tried to devalue are actually its origin? This is where the fear begins. Long before the ships came, before the shackles, and before the lies were printed in textbooks, Africa was known, not just as a landmass, but as a beacon. The Nubians, the Kushites, the people of Kemet, builders of cities, keepers of time, masters of medicine and astronomy. Their knowledge wasn't tribal myth. It was written in stone, measured in monuments that still stand today, defying erosion and denial. And this terrified the world. Because when the first humans are black, when the first civilizations were African, when the mathematics, medicine, and philosophies that shaped the world were birthed by dark-skinned people beneath the equatorial sun, then everything that came after must reckon with that truth. To place Africa at the center of history is to rearrange the entire narrative of superiority. It means that those who claimed to discover the world were centuries behind. It means that the ones considered primitive were, in fact, the pioneers. And that flips the power dynamic. This idea that blackness is not at the margins of history, but at its very core, is threatening in a world built on hierarchy. Because if the origin is black, if the source is African, then dominance over Africa is not just about land or labor. It's about controlling the truth. Even ancient outsiders recognized this. Herodotus, the so-called father of history, described the Ethiopians as tall, strong, and wise, more advanced in some sciences than even the Greeks. Arab travelers spoke in awe of the wealth and order of African empires. Chinese sailors documented structured kingdoms with art, law, and spirituality. But soon, admiration turned to anxiety. Because the more the world saw, the more it feared what Africa represented, a power that did not come from the West, and a legacy that could not be rewritten without violence. So, the narrative had to be changed. Africans became savages, even as they carried the blueprint of civilization. Their gods were labeled pagan, their traditions called superstition. Their achievements were buried, sometimes literally, under museums and foreign flags. Because if the world acknowledged the truth of Africa's primacy, it would also have to acknowledge its debt. And that truth has always been a threat. So let's be clear. This is not just about history. It's about why the presence of African people continues to provoke anxiety in systems that were not built for us, but on top of us. It's about why the erasure of African excellence wasn't accidental. It was strategic. The first chapter of this story isn't about victimhood. It's about origin. And that origin is not weak. It is not broken. It is powerful. And for centuries, the world has tried to silence power that doesn't ask permission. There's a reason why the black body has been both feared and fetishized, admired and controlled, weaponized and enslaved. From the sugar fields of the Caribbean to the cotton plantations of the American South, the African body was seen not just as a labor force, but as a threat wrapped in muscle, rhythm, and endurance. Let's talk about how physicality became political. In the eyes of colonizers, Africans were often described in contradictory terms. Strong but simple, resilient but mindless, powerful but controllable. These weren't just descriptions, they were tools of propaganda. By exaggerating African strength while denying African intellect, colonizers created a justification for exploitation. They're built for hard labor, they said. They feel less pain. They can endure more suffering. These lies didn't emerge in a vacuum. They were part of a global narrative designed to dehumanize Africans while simultaneously fearing what they could become if truly free. Because let's be honest, they didn't fear weakness. They feared what would happen if African strength was ever paired with self-determination. Think about how sports, music, and military service have been used throughout history. Black athletes dominate global arenas, but often face suspicion instead of celebration. Black soldiers fought wars for countries that refused to give them rights. Black musicians birthed the world's most influential genres, yet their voices were often stolen, diluted, or whitewashed. Even in triumph, African descendants have been viewed with a strange unease. Why? Because excellence without control is dangerous to systems of dominance. This fear of the black body isn't new. Ancient Roman texts describe the Nubians as fierce warriors. Arab historians marveled at the stamina of East African traders. European slave traders, while dehumanizing Africans, still wrote obsessively about their strength, their endurance, their ability to survive brutal conditions that would kill most men. That fear evolved into something deeper, the myth of the superhuman African. It's the same myth that says, black people are naturally good at sports. But behind that so-called compliment is a darker truth. It reduces complexity. It erases intellect. It dismisses emotional depth. And it reinforces control. It's the reason why when black men walk through certain neighborhoods, they are seen not as human, but as threat. It's why black women's bodies are policed, sexualized, and simultaneously deemed too strong to need help. It's why, across the world, the African body has become a battlefield, both literally and symbolically. Because a strong people, when conscious of their strength, become unstoppable. And for centuries, systems have been designed to ensure that African strength remains reactive, not revolutionary. But that's changing. From the diaspora to the continent, we are reclaiming the narrative, not just about our past, but our presence. Because the body is not just physical, it's cultural, it's spiritual, it's political. And when you understand that, you begin to see why the African body has always been seen not just as powerful, but as power itself. And power, uncontrolled, is what empires fear the most.